This is Michael Scott Hollash with the Reform Report, and today I am bringing you guys my second interview with Pedge Tattoos. I wanted to bring him back on the channel for him to share his insight and firsthand knowledge on the Bosnian War during the 1990s, as well as his insight on the major players who were behind that conflict from the Bosnian Serb side. Most of these individuals Pedge had firsthand dealings with and or had at least met them. It's a very complex part of history, and I wanted to get some clarity on it and provide some clarity on it, and he is the perfect person to do that. Now, if you have not listened to our first interview, that touches more on his background in Ridgewood, being associated with both the Gambino crime family and the Bonanno crime family. And so that is more of a La Cosa Nostra interview, where this is more going to touch on the militaristic aspect of the Bosnian War, the politics behind it, but also the organized crime connection to it as well. So without further ado, here is my interview with Pedge. We're going to be talking about the conflict over in Serbia pertaining to the Bosnian War. What exactly was the core issue of the, in from the Bosnian Serb perspective of that conflict?
Okay, well, the perspective of that conflict was, I'm going to go way back to like World War II. That's where you get the perspective. World War II, you had the Kingdom of Serbia, and then you had the partisans, which was communist. Tito was the dictator, and he was the leader of the Communist Party. So what ended up happening was the United States made a deal with Draža Mihailović, who was the general of the Serbian Chetnik army, and they even hung the flag on the White House. They did a New York Times editorial. They did an actual Time magazine. I have an actual article from that Time magazine. I have a collector's edition of it. They were helping the Chetniks out, and the Chetniks were helping out the United States, so they were helping a lot. That's where the conflict started. The United States turned their back on the Chetniks and Draža Mihailović and backed Tito. So, once that happens, it all goes south. So now Serbia was a kingdom. It was huge. It stretched all the way up into Croatia and went all the way down into Macedonia and Kosovo. Years of communism and beating people, and having people shot and killed, and it was typical like a Russian, communism.
Right.
Family was giving up their own family members. So Tito was giving you a ticket, and the ticket was like one of my uncles. He spent 18 years in jail because he said, fuck Tito. So every time they came to see him and say, hey, you're going to, reverse what you just said, he's like, fuck Tito. So they finally gave him papers and said, get the fuck out of the country. They could have killed him, but he was kind of like well known in a party and an anti-communist party, so they wanted him out.
Right. They didn't want to make a martyr out of him. Right.
Exactly. So because what happens is this. I mean, you have people that served for Tito, but were really for the Kingdom of Serbia. For instance, Nikola Kavaja. He just basically, told the Yugoslavian police at the time, the secret police, to go fuck themselves, and that he's leaving the country and he's going to the United States. As did Bosko Radoncic. Those were hardcore Serbs. They wanted to fight for Serbia. They didn't want to fight for communist Yugoslavia. So most of the people that immigrated from World War II were pretty hardcore, either Croatian, hardcore Serbian, hardcore Bosnian Muslim. They were all hardcore something, Right. So most of the Serbs landed in New York and then went to Chicago. So Chicago has, next to Serbia's capital, Belgrade, the second largest amount of Serbs in the United States.
Wow, man, that's
Yeah, I'm not shitting
interesting.
you. I'm not shitting you. I've been to functions, and they have 20, I think 23 to 28 churches. They have 2 monasteries. They have 3 graveyards. They have, like it's just crazy. I mean, and there's a lot of Croats as well. Now, with the conflict happening, a lot of Montenegrins have moved there, Bosnian Muslims, so they've carved out a little chunk for themselves in Chicago. But Serbs still, it's Chicago first, then Toronto, Canada, then I think Upper North California.
Mhm.
It's just like, I mean, there's about maybe 3.5, 4 million Serbs in the United States.
Right.
So, and then the
And
next one is
these are more like
Australia.
Orthodox Serbs, not Muslim
Right.
Serbs. Right.
No,
Right.
but honestly, now like the demographics have changed. And I started doing my homework and reading, and I guess out of my family that didn't get indoctrinated, I didn't. I have a lot of family back home who are not. They're hardcore Chetnik Serbs, and I'm half and half. My mom is Romanian, so my dad is Serbian. He's Bosnian Serb.
Right.
So, and he's from the actual Republika Srpska, from the Serbian entity. So we're not in any Muslim area. We're not close to one. We were in the heart. We're next to Banja Luka, the capital. So, yeah, the conflict. Yeah, it started in Vukovar, Croatia. It was all politics. Exactly what's going on right now, right here in the United States. Down with the monuments. Like Antifa doing this, BLM that. The same thing was going on in the streets over there. The presidents were all like taking turns from every republic to become president. Like one was from Macedonia for 4 years, then one was from Croatia. When it got to the Serbian one to be president, which was Slobodan Milosevic, everybody had a conniption. No, we don't want Serbs to be in control, because the majority of the population in the former Yugoslavia is 78% Serbian. So
Right.
we're going to change the name from Yugoslavia eventually to Kingdom of Serbia once again. So that just started getting fucking people like on edge. So Vukovar is where the flashpoint started. The police there just started blocking roads, going house to house, taking people's weapons. The same shit that's kind of happening here, taking away your rights. And that's how the conflict kind of started.
Right. Yeah.
Meanwhile,
Starting minimal
in the
and
United States. Yeah, meanwhile, in the United States, the CIA and the FBI had us labeled as yaks. Yugoslav, Albanian, Croatian, Serbian. So we don't go by that. We either go by Yugos or by what ethnic person you are. Like, I'm a Serb, I'm a Croat, I'm a this, I'm a that. Then you can get even deeper. How hardcore of you are a Serb? If you're a really hardcore Serb, you're a Chetnik, meaning there's no room for error. You're either with us or you are not, So Croatians were Ustash. They were the ones that were basically top of the top, like they had no room for anybody else. Either you convert, you become one of us, or we kill you. So
wow.
there is also a Holocaust in Jasenovac, Croatia, where they murdered 1.2 million Serbs. They're putting it at a lower number. But
So who was behind those murders?
Croatians.
Okay, the Croatians. So I'm assuming during Tito's time, he was probably allied with Stalin, I would imagine, right? Was he an allied?
He was. Yes, he was. He was
a Bolshevik,
allied with Stalin,
right?
And he promised that if he went in, he was going to let Russia come in, meaning to be a satellite part of Russia. That's the whole deal. That's why the United States didn't want to back Tito. They were backing the Chetniks, and the Kingdom of Serbia. But then you know how that goes. Like look at Afghanistan. 1 minute, the United States is backing this one, and then 5 minutes later, who are they backing? They're backing the people we were fighting against, Taliban.
Right.
So
well, it's all about, in those situations, generally, we have, our hooks in the leader. They're a CIA asset.
Right.
And when the time comes when that leader, and or the country as a whole pressures that leader to no longer want to play ball at the United States, then it's easy for us to go in and concoct a fabricated war to 100%. Sell to the American people. And it's all about going and removing that individual. And then in the process, if the country has any, any natural assets, we can asset strip the country.
Well, see, that's what's going on right now. You know what I'm saying? So what ended up happening was when Tito did this deal with the United States, I mean, you can look this up. This is not something I'm BSing about. It's on History channels. Tito did this, and he promised the United States, God knows what he promised them. He took money in aid that he never paid back. I mean, if you were to, like, add that money up today, it'd be like, I don't know, $1 trillion.
Right.
He made the country great, meaning, hey, you can go on paid vacation, everything, but it's still communist. But now, see, Russia's pissed at Tito because he's communist, but he has no affiliation with Stalin or, and any of the Russian, presidents or anything. He even, at one point, I remember going back home in 1977, he basically said, look, I'm not going to do this no more. I don't, I want to be, my own dictator. Russia's tanks on the border. And I was caught in the middle of this. It was just like, I remember, like, they were like, I mean, all around Romania, in Hungary, there was all Russian tanks. They were ready to, like, go to war with Tito. I don't know what ended up happening, but that got called out bluff. I don't know, maybe the United States got involved, that they're going to send missiles. I really don't know, but that shit got stopped in a month. We came back to the United States, but it was rough in the United States because there was a lot of people that were like Bosco, they were doing criminal activities and whatnot, but they were devout Serbian Chetniks. They were just like,
Right.
gung-ho.
Now, just a quick,
couple of social clubs.
A quick question: How far back? Yeah. How far back does Bosco go? Like how like?
Bosco's family goes back very far into this. They never were, how can I explain it? They never were indoctrinated. Yeah, everybody had to have a red card. The red card is the communist card. You had to carry that card with you. So a lot of people were like, okay, fuck it. I'm going to get the red card. I'm going to carry it with me. I'm going to say I'm a communist. I go to meetings. But really, they would be meeting in their house and saying, how are we going to do this and how are we going to do that? How are we going to take this guy out? Here comes Nikola Kavaya. Nikola Kavaya was actually a secret police, like whatever you want to call it, like a KGB. And he even worked with the fucking KGB. And he basically, when he got his authorization from Russia, he was like a double spy. So he fled somehow. I don't know the story behind it that well, but he fled somehow, came to the United States, and started, hooked up with Bosco. And they were known. They were known in the Irish community. They were like IRA. They were just like blowing up fucking shit. They were blowing up, Kavaya blew up a fucking embassy. Like, for real. He blew up the embassy. And then
was this in New York?
This was actually in Chicago.
Chicago.
In Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
He blew up the Yugoslavian mission, the embassy mission or whatever. He blew it up, and he blew up a couple of Yugoslavian social clubs where all these communists would fucking come and meet. So he got proposed. I mean, you could Wikipedia this shit. He got proposed by the CIA to kill Tito. So that's where Bosco comes in. Bosco's like, whatever you need, I'm here to help you. I know all of this because firsthand, like I told you, I met Bosco.
Mm-hmm.
He liked me. He took me under his wing. We'll get into that a little later. But there's stories, and when you're an old man, you like to tell stories.
Right? Yeah. Bosco was a heavyweight, man, for sure, no doubt.
Let me tell you something. So Nikola Kavaya comes from a very long history and a long family of anti-communist, anti-Albanian, anti-Croatian. He was just hardcore Chetnik Montenegrin to the bone. His family had wars, like family wars, blood feuds with Albanian clans in Montenegro. His last name is not really Kavaya, but it's like a nickname they gave,
Mm-hmm.
So Nikola Kavaya was not to be fucked with. And when the CIA told him, we're backing you, go kill Tito, he hijacked the plane, and I don't know what the deal was, but he was in air. He was trying to get to Zagreb to fucking blow up, crash the plane into fucking Tito's house. He ended up landing in Ireland, let the fucking pilot go, and gave himself up. So he was in jail for many, many, many years. Now, his followers were not. His followers were in Montenegro, and they were just growing and growing and growing. Bosco was kind of, helping out, financially.
Hmm.
When Cavalla did get free, he had no country to go to. The United States would put him in deportation. The feds and the CIA kind of fucked this up. CIA, he was working for, but when it came to his trial, CIA was nowhere to be found.
Of course, that's how it always works.
So the feds got him on, fucking hijacking, bombing, blah blah blah.
Wow.
So
Wow.
yeah, when he did get out, Serbia finally, agreed to grant him citizenship and let him go, like to live there. The minute he got there, I shit you not, got a training camp up and running in Montenegro. And if he didn't have 15,000 paramilitary members ready to go, I mean, he was training them like, hand-to-hand combat, assassination.
And like, what time period would this have been? Like, what year?
This would have been right after the wars.
Okay.
Right after the wars. Late 90s, early 2000. Yeah, because he passed away, I think, around 2008. I'm not exactly sure, 2009. I can't really give you a date because I used to go back and forth, but I happened to be in Belgrade when he passed.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard that he passed, and I reached out to Bosco. Bosco was already in Belgrade. He had his casino in, where the hell was it? Fruška Gora, which is like it's in Novi Sad. It's in another area of Serbia. It's like on the border with Bosnia.
Mm-hmm.
So he had a casino there. It was out in the woods, and that was his main base of operations. So
Did you ever meet him?
Cavalla, I only got to meet at his funeral. I only got to see the casket. I've never gotten to meet, but words were spoken of me to him through his members here in the United States. I had a friend that I spoke to in the last interview. I don't know if it was part of the interview or if it was cut out. His name was Sava the boxer.
Oh yeah, yes, yep.
Yeah, he used to train at Gleason's gym. There was a big whole, shit to do with, like I said, with the Yaks. It was a fighting inbred thing, and he got his ear sliced off in a fight in a bar. Happened to see this shit. I became good friends with I'm good with everybody. I'm saying, regardless. So I became good with Sava, and Sava kept telling me about Cavalla. Like, I didn't know who the fuck he was talking about. Like, I really didn't. He said, do your homework and study. This guy's like Dražen Mihailovic. He's a hardcore guy, And he goes, I spoke to him in jail, and he goes, I'm part of his group. And I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, back home, they got guys that are loyal to him, loyal to his division, And I'm like, and you spoke about me? He goes, yeah, he knows all about you. Whether he was blowing smoke up my ass, I don't fucking know. But whenever I did speak to Bosco, like, hey, Bosco, I'm in town. What's up? This and this. Hit me up at this number. Or I'd call up his guy that he was good with. I'd be like, hey, Canelli, why don't you hook me up with this? With Bosco, give me his number. I always would hear stories like, yeah, Cavalla is asking for you. I happen to be a lucky guy where I always got involved in something or overheard something or, and I just met a lot of fucking people along the way. So my life is very colorful,
Right.
And to be alive and to be able to talk about this shit and to have pictures,
Right.
I'm sorry that the picture I did give you, it's Bosco at Cavalla's funeral.
Absolutely.
But it was a quick picture that I snapped because, it was like, I'm not going to lie to you, if there wasn't 250 people, just gangsters, like fucking, prime minister, president, former Republic of Macedonia came, the representatives, it was all high people coming in there. And I'm there at that funeral. If there wasn't 40, 50,000 people in that cemetery, it's crazy,
Right.
Same thing with Bosco's funeral. I wasn't there for it. I heard when it was too late, but the pictures that was sent to me was ridiculous. It was like half of Belgrade emptied out into the cemetery for Bosco. It was, he was known as the John Gotti of Belgrade.
Right. But even more because he, these guys were such patriots to the cause.
Yeah.
They are like, they supply from being suppliers to supporters, monetary supporters, whatever the cause. I mean, not nothing for nothing, but for the, for what they were to their people compared to John Gotti to his people. I mean, John Gotti was a nothing. These guys to your people were
I'm telling
huge.
you, like, I'm going to be honest with you. Like, back home, during that time, that turmoil, when that shit popped off in Bukovar, coming back, I was there at that time when it was popping off, but I wasn't there. I was in Bosnia. I'm hearing rumors about passport changes. The money's flipping. It's like the interest rate's going up. Like today's $5 is really only worth 50 cents. And I'm like, why is inflation going up so fucking high? And my uncle's like stocking up on ammo. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And there was tension in the street. You felt it, in Bosnia especially. There was tension in the streets. It was like one cafe versus the other cafe. You could see the tension in the air. It was just like...
And what time period was this?
This was 89, 90.
Okay, right.
So it was just, I'm not going to sit there and lie, it was popping. It already blew up in Croatia. It was like, it blew up, they sent in the Yugoslavian army, supposedly, and they just fucking went nuts. Then, Archon's Tigers. It was just like, 1 minute, there were soccer hooligans, and he was the biggest criminal there was. Interpol was looking for him. He escaped out of so many fucking jails, Arkan. And all of a sudden, he's the commander of fucking 25,000 fucking soccer hooligans. And they're like bomb specialists. And that, they would say, had a saying that when Arkan entered a town, not even the grass would be standing. Meaning he fucking just mowed the lawn. This guy was like straight up hardcore murderer. Now, Arkan used to work for the MUP, which was the secret Serbian police, UDBA. So that was called UDBA, MUP. So he worked for them. So he was an assassin for Slobodan Milosevic. So he would go around whacking people all over the world. So there was one incident when he was in Croatia. He was doing a gun smuggling thing, and they arrested him. They were going to give him 10 years. I don't know what the fuck Slobodan did. Made a phone call and he's walking free.
Wow.
And Nasser Oric, the Bosnian Muslim, that this whole genocide thing happened in Srebrenica, it was all his fucking fault. Because I'm going to be honest, he slaughtered the village next to it that was all Serbian, and he killed fucking 3,800 people in one fucking night on Christmas Eve. So if a genocide did happen, it was in retaliation for what happened in the town adjacent to Srebrenica. So right. Nasser Oric was another hitman for Slobodan Milosevic. But when the war broke out, everybody took their own sides. My opinion on all of this was, I'm growing up in America, I'm running around with Italians. I didn't fucking know. Till an Italian guy came up to me and says, hey, you're not a fucking Italian. You're not a Guinea. You're not one of us. Fucking, you're Yugoslavian. Go find out what the fuck you are. That's where I started to choose my side. Like,
right.
I have to be what I am. What do I feel in my heart? And I'm going back and forth. Most of my family back home is either in the war, they volunteered, they had a draft back home, so some of them had to go no matter what. They were 19, boom, they just put you on the front line.
Right.
But then it became more political. It just became more Croatia versus Serbia
right.
versus Croatia.
Well, and not only that, even though you were here, you were very connected to what was going on back home because of major players like Bosco being based up where you were, And
I'm going to be honest with you, a lot of times, I mean, like, Bosco at one time, he was running a club in Ridgewood. And this was right around the time when this was popping off, 89. And I don't know, two Bosnian Muslim guys. I mean, you could tell by the look on their face, they were Bosnian Muslim. They came in, and I don't know, Bosco sitting in the corner, and I'm doing my thing playing pool, and I just hear gunshots, pop, pop, pop. And these two fucking guys start running right past me. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck's going on. I see Bosco running after him. And I go out, he's yelling at me in Serbian to get the fuck down, to go back inside. But, curious little fucking dickhead teen, I run out there. I'm like, what's going on? What's going on? And Bosco just shoots these motherfuckers. Gets one of them. They pull him in the car. I think this guy was dead. But yet, nobody came to Bosco for this. Nobody came to question except the police. Police showed up. What happened? I don't know, two guys getting shot and left. Asked me, asked three other guys. Story stayed the same. Bosco just tells me, don't worry, you don't got to pay for drinks ever again when you come in here. I'm like, I don't really care, Bosco. You know, I really don't give a shit. He's like, I'll take care of them. I know who the fuck they are. So there must have been something with this conflict back home that started with, you know, here in Queens, you know. So that's when it started getting a little, let's just say, it started getting a little, it was, you got to pick a side. You know, there's no, you can't get away with that Yugoslavian shit. You know, like, I wouldn't dare walk into an Albanian social club. There wasn't any in Queens at the time. But, like, in the Bronx, I used to know a lot of guys because I used to, you know, I was good with the gay guys, the Pepeyes, what's the name of the other family? The gay guys, the Pepeyes. There was another family. I can't really remember at this moment. But they were really big players, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I ran with them. So I used to go to Arthur Avenue. But during this conflict, do you fucking think I would go? Fuck no. Because the first thing that happened is I'd walk into that cafe, and if I don't walk in with somebody Italian who's got pull on Arthur Avenue where all the Italians are, you know, my ass is grass, man. They're going to start popping at me. You know, they're going to start shooting. So I'm not looking for that problem. Going to Astoria, Queens was a problem because everything was either, like, sided, like, you know, Albanian, Greek kind of thing. You know, the Greeks kind of got along with the Albanians, so they kind of like had social clubs. They were doing their shit, running their money and their drugs and whatever. But
that's funny you say that because I you know, there's certain Albanians, they kind of carry themselves like Greeks. You know what I mean?
Well, you know what's funny? Coming to Florida, I died laughing. In New York, you walk into a pizzeria and 9 out of 10 times it's an Albanian guy serving you a slice of pizza. I could just tell by their accent. Like, they're like, next. I could just tell they're Albanian. They say they're Italian. They're not. You come here, and I go to Tarpon Springs, and I swear to God, I walk in, and they're like, next. And I'm like, you're not fucking Greek. And then I will tell them in Greek, thank you, and they'll look at me like with a blank face on. And I'm like, you don't speak Greek? I'm not Greek. I'm Albanian. But they say they're Greek, like to everybody else. I'm Greek, but you know, they're not Greek, you know. So it's you know what I think it is? I just think they're trying to assimilate. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
right.
I think that a lot of Albanians from southern Albania, which was formerly Ypres of Greece, they kind of carried themselves as Greek, yes. You know, like even Frankie was with me one time. We were at a Greek place, and there was a lot of Albanians and a lot of whatever, Montenegrians and Bosnian Muslims. Frankie was with me. Frankie goes, whatever the fuck happens. I don't give a fucking shit. I'm with you. And I was just like, okay. He goes, you strapped? Oh, yeah, I'm strapped. And we went in, and it was, you know, we had to go out the back door. Let's just say that. The shit blew up. You know, like, it was tension in the air. It was really bad.
Right.
So Queens was really, during that whole conflict from 90 to about 96, 97, was really fucking bad. Then it kind of calmed the fuck down because everybody made a niche for themselves in the community. You know, it was like Astoria was this. They ran with the Genoveses and the fucking Lucchese's, you know, and, you know, Ridgewood was Banano, Gambino, you know. So I was under the Banano wing, but I had connections with the Gambino. So it was like I had my own bar. And when I opened up my bar, I was the first motherfucker in 30-something years to open up a non-Yugoslavian bar. I had a Serbian flag that draped the interior of the bar, meaning it from the front door all the way to the fucking back, you know, double-headed eagle with the cross and the 4 C's. And I had the guys trying to come in, like, you know, Muslims at the front door, Albanians, and I would not allow them in. I said, yo, I'm sorry, it's a private club. They didn't like it. I had my window shot out. I've been threatened. You know, there was a fight that broke out inside there where, you know, knives were pulled, guns were drawn. But I told them, you can't touch me, motherfucker, because you don't know whose house you're in. You know, like, they thought they could just come in and do what they wanted to do. You know, they shot at my door. They shot at my ex-wife. You know, like, it got crazy. You know, it was a real bad time. But, you know, going into being there in Yugoslavia, Serbia, let me tell you something. Bosnia, it lit up. Lit up around, I'm going to say 92. It lit up. And I was there.
And now, obviously, at this point, Radovan was the president, right?
Radovan was the president. Radovan made a speech in Sarajevo, and he told it like it is. He goes, if you think that we're going to bow down and let you just fucking make us, you know, Turkish fucking slaves once again, he goes, we're not doing it. He goes, not one Serb wants to be in a union with Bosnian Muslims and, Bosnian Croatians or whatever. We want our own peace. We want to stay with Yugoslavia. Meaning they weren't looking to carve a peace out and just be their own country. They wanted to go with Yugoslavia. Because at that time, Serbia didn't exist as an entity. It was, Yugoslavia still, but they were in the formation of changing it to Serbia and Montenegro, And it went through so many fucking name changes. But Radovan had this big speech. It's still on YouTube. And that kind of moved the shit out of me when I heard that.
Yeah, what a leader,
Yeah, he was, let me tell you something. He's a psychiatrist.
Right.
Very smart, intelligent,
very well spoken. Absolutely.
When I met him, I didn't get the vibe of arrogance. This guy was just like, look, history's history, and this is what it is. And like the little brief 10-minute conversation we had, he saw that I was a patriot. And he was just like, hey, I think you need to talk to this guy. I think you need to talk to that guy. And he introduced me to a general. He introduced me to some other fucking guy that's on his staff. I got to take a picture with him. I'm trying to dig up that picture. I don't know if...
Damn, dude, that's... I mean, what an awesome experience.
Through my divorce, I lost a lot of shit. I had a couple of floods up in Jersey when I was living there. And I lost a lot of shit, a lot of books. I actually had a book from Radovan Karadzic autographed. Bosco got me that.
Wow.
It was a book that he wrote, and it was translated in English, and I had the Serbian copy. So it was written, and it said, to a great patriot, and I lost that in the flood. So, it's kind of hard to keep, I'm lucky I got what I got.
Right.
If it wasn't for the few shit that I did fucking, stash in the attic or whatever, it is what it is. But going back to the former Yugoslavia and going to Bosnia was impossible for me. That's where Bosco came in. And in the picture I showed you, I'm in full uniform, full regalia. The only way I could fucking get in to see my grandmother was to be one of them. Like, dress up as a fucking army dude. If, hey, here's your gun, here's your Kalashnikov. You get to point A to point B. I used to hitch rides. It's a 7-hour drive from where Bosco had his casino in Fruška Gora. So it was a 7-hour ride, and it was like a horseshoe you had to drive through. You had to avoid all Muslim-held territories, which is now the Republic of Srpska. So, for me to get there, that 7-hour drive actually took me a little longer because they're not going to just drive you there 7 hours. You're going to go 3 hours and you're going to stop in this town and you're going to hang out with these paramilitary guys. And, if you have to shoot a little, you shoot a little. You got to do what you got to do to get to where you want to fucking go.
Right.
So, put it this way. Bosco made a phone call. I'm pretty sure he made a phone call to Radovan and said, I got a couple of guys coming up because he was at that time heavily involved with supplying ammunition, supplying weapons.
Oh, of course.
Whatever the paramilitaries wanted, he would give them.
Absolutely.
He was a hardcore patriot. Okay.
And he was a major supplier, and he had connections with the Irish Republican Army. Right.
Let me tell you something. He was the main major supplier. So you had Radovan Karadzic running one area. Then you had Vojislav Šešelj, who was at that time, I don't know what the fuck he was. I don't know if he was a prime minister or he was something in the parliament. And he got crowned Duke, which is a voivoda in the Chetnik army. So he got crowned by the last living Duke, a Duke himself. So he got the emblem, he got the badge, he got the thing around his neck with the double-headed eagle. So he was crowned a Duke. And he ended up going into The Hague too, but they couldn't pin shit on him. He actually spent, something like 10 years in The Hague arguing his case, and he was like, so boisterous, this man. Vojislav Šešelj was telling fucking, what was her name? De Ponte, the lady, the female judge. He was telling her to suck his dick and go fuck yourself and fuck all you people.
That's awesome.
It's on YouTube.
Good for him.
It's on YouTube. He was just, and then he said, she goes, can you read what the last statement said? And Vojislav Šešelj says, I said basically that if you guys want to try me for, crimes against humanity, you can all go suck my fucking dick. And he said it straight out like that. Like,
well, and really, honestly, at the end of the day, and I know you and I have talked about this. I mean, that whole trial, in a roundabout way, is like the Nuremberg trial. It's like a dog and pony show trial.
I'm going to tell you honestly, the only way Vojislav didn't get charged is because they said, we have a witness that put you at this town. He goes, great, because I have a video clip of me being in the same day in a different town where there wasn't any massacres. So fucking how are you going to, try me on this?
Mm-hmm.
So, I was following this shit the whole time because going back and forth, there was no way for me to get money to my family. So I would have to send money to Serbia. Then from Serbia, this guy skims a little, and then it gets to this guy. Then it gets to Bosco. Then Bosco sends it to this guy. Then, by the time it gets to my grandmother and my uncle, it's fucking light as fuck. So I would take a trip. What does it cost me? $600 during the winter to fucking fly 2A. So I go to Belgrade. I go see Bosco. I don a uniform. I get in the fucking truck. It's always fresh fucking meat coming in. It's always like, volunteers, guys from, Australia, from Germany. They would meet in Serbia in certain areas and just like, they would go and they would fucking fight, man.
Well,
and,
you know why?
time,
You know why? Because it was a pure, genuine nationalist movement, and real nationalists are gonna fight for that cause because it's like it's a genuine movement. You know what I mean?
And I'm not gonna listen to me, and I'm not gonna sit here and try to toot the horn of the Serbs like they're great people. They're, like I said before, I love being who I am, but I also fucking hate my people because they're so mentally retarded, man. They're just like like if you get enough of us to stick together, there's a saying in Serbian, like if unity can save the Serbs. That's what our symbol means. Those 4 C's in Cyrillic. It's like unity can save the Serbs. If we were to unite, we could take back what's ours. But there's a problem. There's a lot of jealousy. There's a lot of greed. There's a lot of bullshit, in our minds. And it's too many chiefs, not enough Indians. That's the problem.
Right.
That's what it boils down to. God forbid I would have got caught on the other side, or if something would have happened.
Oh yeah, especially wearing the uniform, dude. What?
It's done. It's done. I mean, it is what it is. When I got to a certain area, anywhere near Sarajevo, my uniform would change. I suddenly became Republika Srpska Army. So now I'm Republika Srpska. I'm not no more paramilitary. So
Right.
I have these patches, but I got to dig them up. If I could dig them up later on tonight, I will take individual patches, pictures of them for you, and I have my beret downstairs. So I have official Republika Srpska Army uniform. I kept it. I have it in my closet. It's a memory you don't want to get rid of. And,
Absolutely.
And, there was, every time that I did go back home, it made it a lot fucking easier once I landed in Belgrade to don that uniform and just say, I got an escort. Like, they didn't even put me through customs. It was just like, that's your suitcase? Yeah, you could have a kilo of drugs. They didn't give a shit. They were just like, where you got to go? Take me here. My uncle's waiting for me. When people saw you wearing a uniform, because everybody was like, from the war, coming back home, that was their rest time. They would leave Bosnia, come back, stay a month, and kind of wind down. But they were in full uniform, AK on their back. No police was stopping them. Nobody was saying shit. Listen, the head players at that time when Bosco was back home was Canale. Canale got murdered. He was, 20 and change years old. All the Serbian gangs, you could tell them a mile away. Everybody had a fucking, what do you call those, fucking tracksuit? But they would wear the tracksuit and they'd put it in their pants. So that was like that hip look, and they had the chest open. Everybody had
Right.
tons of gold around their neck. Everybody had tons of gold. That's how you knew, and short buzzed haircuts. That's how you knew who the gangsters were. And everybody was bodybuilding, and everybody was driving around nice cars. Everybody was strapped. So these 4 blocks would have 20 members of one gang. Those 10 blocks down over there would be another gang. So there was interconflict during the 90s. It was a fucking free-for-all. It was like the Colombo Wars back in the old days. It was you couldn't leave without getting shot at, or somebody getting shot. You're walking down a main boulevard in Belgrade and you hear pop, 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 pop. Like, it wasn't crazy because I kept going back and forth, so I got used to this,
Right.
And, when I was living for a brief time in Brooklyn and my mom was doing all of that shit that I told you, she was dating this Albanian guy, I was losing my fucking mind. So when I went back home, for me, it was kind of like I'm around my people. I got to see the real side of shit. But I also got to see a grimy side. When that guy told me it's him or you, that guy fucking cocked the hammer and put the shit to my head. Either you're here and you're going to do something or you're not. And here comes my savior. A guy that I know, he was an American fucking Ranger, but when the war broke out, he went to Nicaragua. He was all involved in all of that shit. Okay, with the CIA. But when the war broke out, he told the CIA, "I'm gonna go fucking make a band. I'm gonna call them the fucking White Eagles. I'm gonna go to Bosnia. I'm gonna make a paramilitary organization." They just said, "Okay, you're MIA. We don't know nothing about you. If they find you, don't say you're affiliated with us. We can't help you."
Right.
So he was there. He had 300 guys, and these 300 guys.
And he was an American.
He was an American. Yes, his name was Steve. I think his last name was Alexis. I'm not sure. He just passed recently. This guy was. Let me tell you something. This is the guy that cut Sava Boxer's ear off. Okay. I mean, this guy was just living, breathing that Serbian Chetnik life. Mm-hmm. You know, family history of Chetniks. You know, he would walk. Let me tell you something. When he went to the war and came back, he did 6-month tours and he'd come back. He'd be walking around with a bulletproof vest, grenades in his pocket, and he'd go, "Hey, Pedge, you want to go grab a beer and a story?" I go, "What are you, out of your fucking mind? You got a target on your back." He goes, "Fuck them. I'll pull a pin and blow up the whole fucking cafe." I go, "I'm not hanging out with you." Now, this guy happens to be in the village that this little incident happened with me. And his group starts to come in, and what's going on, Papa? He's throwing out orders, and this guy goes, "Nothing, we're going to execute a couple of fucking prisoners." And he sees me, and he pulls up his fucking mask, and he goes, "What the fuck are you doing here?" And I go, "Holy shit, Steve." And he's like, "What?" And he slaps me. He goes, "What the fuck are you doing in uniform?" And so I start explaining to him. He goes, "Oh, he got his papers here. He's good. He's cleared to Banja Luka." He goes, "You're going with my guys. We're going all the way up to so-and-so. That's only one village away from where your grandmother is. You're sticking with me. If it takes 3 months, you're staying with me." He goes, "I do not want you with these ragtag fucking bunches of shit." He goes, "They don't know what the fuck they're doing. They drink and then they go out shoot." He goes, "My guys are trained professionals." So He saved my life. He saved my life. I'm going to be really honest with you. I think if he wouldn't have came in the next half hour, I think they would have blew my brains out.
Right. Well, not only that, they weren't just going to get you to where you needed to go. They would have kept you, tried to keep you involved.
God knows what they would have did. They probably would have kept me for prisoner exchange and gave me to the Muslims or some shit. I really don't know, but I'm going to be honest with you. That opened up my fucking eyes. And then instead of me dealing with Bosco and his guys, because that kind of left a bad taste. But I know it wasn't Bosco's fault, because I'm not going to lie to you. In the years that I went back and forth, if there wasn't 40 paramilitary groups that I had to deal with, 40. But I'm not going to lie to you, during that war, if there wasn't 120 to 200 paramilitary groups. But the actual war itself was planned. It was, when it started in Sarajevo, a lot of people don't know this. It started on the day of voting, right after Radovan's speech.
Right.
It was a Serbian wedding in Sarajevo, Serbian wedding. They came out of church, and a group of armed men came out of nowhere and said, "Why aren't you voting?" And they're like, "We just got married, this and that." They were masked. They had the Bosnian symbol already, like a little tag, like it was the little stripe in the fleur-de-lis blue, like safety pinned on their, not a fucking army jacket, not an army shirt, a regular fucking sweater, pinned, and they just shot the best man and shot the groom.
Wow.
So that was the first shot fired in Sarajevo. I find that ironic, just how World War I started. A Serb shot Archduke Ferdinand, and that was the first shot that started World War I.
Yep, you're right about that.
To me, that's what I think, and I feel in my heart, that's what started the war. Because these motherfuckers, and this guy Izetbegovic, that was the president of Bosnia at that time, he fucking just kept pushing and pushing and pushing. Bosnia to separate. And then all the Serbs, everybody had fucking weapons. Like everybody had something in their house, These motherfuckers were just starting little mini wars and little enclaves and this and that. And it just, when the army rolled in, it was all over.
Right.
most of the Serbs are not city dwellers. They're mostly farmers. So, like, I own, like, 40 square acres back home in Bosnia. So when you look at it, at the blueprint of what the Serbs took over, we had close to 75% of Bosnia because we owned it. It was like we're farmers. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
and most of the Muslims and Croatians were in fucking the city. You know, like Mostar. It's a fucking city. But, you know, when you can't get along with somebody and you don't want to get along with somebody, it didn't have to go to that extreme. It didn't have to be Sniper Alley. It didn't have to be... Because let me tell you something. I do really honestly feel bad that a lot of innocent fucking people got murdered. You know, just going to get a loaf of bread.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But I mean, but
really
at the
do
same,
feel-
but at the same token, I mean that's the, you know, unfortunately, you know, there's casualties in war, and when there's
There is.
war in you know, obviously populated areas by civilian populations, there's you know,
Exactly.
there's going to be civilian losses. You know,
I mean,
but like
listen,
you said,
I
when the other side's pushing, you know, and they're murdering innocent people, then you know,
Yeah.
obviously, then you're gonna have, you know, a general that's a you know,
Yeah.
a get it done general like melodic that's
Yeah.
gonna go in and do what he has to do, you know.
Yeah. See, like, and Mladic, I'm gonna be 100% honest with you. Never met him. You know, nothing like that. But he's a hero. I mean, you know, he was a professional general. There's no conversations where he said, and I know The Hague doesn't have any of this shit. There's no conversations where he has said liquidate. Okay? And let me ask you an honest question. If you're going to liquidate, are you going to liquidate the correct way? I mean, you have many wars before you, and you know how to liquidate. Why would you liquidate the way they said they liquidated? Oh, we're going to take these guys and move them 400 miles away and bury 20 bodies over here. You know,
Right.
I'm sorry to say, but the pre-population of Srebrenica didn't even have that many Muslims that they have casualties, that they're saying X amount died there.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't even have that many pre-war.
Right.
So it's ironic to me. I'm not going to say,
Look, anytime, you know, they try to prosecute quote unquote genocide, they always pad the numbers to make it even, you know, and not to negate the loss of life, but to pad the numbers to make it that much more far
Well, look,
worse
the thing-
horrific ordeal, you know.
Well, here's the deal. Look at Kosovo, Racak, the Racak massacre. If you look, and you can look it up, it's out there. It's on the internet. Look it up. It wasn't people of like fighting age. It was older people. It was whatever. But hey, hold up a second. These motherfuckers were dressed. You could tell they were dressed with uniforms, and they were redressed, and they were moved. Their bodies weren't from there. So they moved 3 bodies here. They moved 4 bodies over there. And at the same time, here comes the guy from the UN inspection, and oh my God, 28 people massacred. Serbs came in and just did that. Look, I'm going to tell you honestly, I know people that went and fought in Kosovo, and the main guy that was starting all this fucking shit, forgot his fucking last name, but yo, they went in, they found tunnels going to his property, the fucking army surrounded, came out with his fucking head. Like, literally, they just decapitated him. Came out, took pictures, put that shit on the internet, and was like, what the fuck you gonna do? And then you have fucking this guy, fucking Hardinai, fucking goes to The Hague, and every witness that's supposed to testify against him all of a sudden disappears, all of a sudden is fucking not willing to testify. You don't think that even though they're Albanians, they want to do right and say, hey, this is what happened. He murdered our own people, too. Like he did, you know? And this organ harvesting from fucking, you know, Hasan Taci, they were killing innocent Serbs and sending them to our fucking Albania to be fucking have their organs removed. Like,
Wow.
take out a lung, keep them alive. Take out another lung, or take out the liver, take out this, take out a kidney, you know. They were organ harvesting. They caught the doctor. He was an Israeli doctor. They caught him.
Imagine
And he
that.
testified to
Imagine
everything.
that.
Yeah, and none of this shit. No, because we're the bad guys. Serbs are bad. Don't get me wrong.
I never even heard that, man. That's freaking grotesque.
I'm telling. Look. I'm giving you information that's already out there.
Right.
And it eats at me. It eats at me. But I can't do nothing. You know, like when I was younger, I went to every protest, every fucking, you know. And then I had fucking the feds constantly taking pictures of me and saying, what are you, making a, like a paramilitary group here? Are you doing it? And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? I go, I'm just a patriot. Yeah,
Right.
well, if you want to fucking stay a citizen, shut the fuck up. Stop coming to these demonstrations. And I was like, okay. So I went back into my little thing that I was doing. I thought I was safe doing that and whatever. But I stopped going back home around 96, 97. That's when I opened up my bar.
Right.
And then I went back home in 2001. Matter of fact, I'm not going to lie to you, a week after 9/11. I already booked my tickets and everything. And I remember being on a flight, and there was a fucking guy, wrapped up with like a fucking towel on his head. And I just grabbed my fucking pen, and I was like, if this fucking guy, moves, I'm going to fucking jab him in his eye. Like, that's how scared I was. But I landed in Belgrade. And, it is what it is. There's a lot of Arabs in Belgrade, businessmen. So, I landed there. It was a different atmosphere. 2001. I went back 2002, 2003, 2004. My son was born 2005. I went back in 2007. Bosnia was completely different. There's still areas in Bosnia that you don't hear a dog bark, meaning they have not returned to the villages, because it was like, well, we're not going back. Because, the few villagers that are left, you come back, we throw a bomb in your house. Like, that's how the tensions are high. And right now, especially, they've been doing referendums in Bosnia where they want to separate. And the people want it. The majority of people, it's like 68, 69%, they want Republika Srpska to go with Serbia itself proper. They're backed by the Chinese. They're backed by Russian weaponry.
Right.
Their economy is doing phenomenal. They just want to leave, but this fucking Izetbegović's son now is being a fucking prick. And he's, again, no, we're not going to leave, because he can't take having just a little piece of the country. He wants, he wants it all. But this guy that was the prime minister of Republika Srpska actually became the president of the Bosnian complete entity. So he's now throwing in Serbian shit. Like, he wants the Serbian flag in Sarajevo. They were like, no, you can't have that. He goes, fuck you. He goes, we're a majority. He goes, we want it.
Right.
So he's a real fucking hard ass, And the only thing I really feel bad about this whole conflict was the fucking backstabbing move that Milosevic did. I don't know why he did it. I don't know if he was forced, his hand was forced. But when he signed that peace treaty with Croatia, let me tell you something. Every Serbian, majority of Serbs, I'd say close to 350,000, did like a walk, dropped their weapons and left Croatia.
Wow.
We had a third of Croatia under our control. They just left. And it was called Operation Storm. The United States backed it. The United States helped.
Well, he probably was probably under pressure by the United States,
Well, look, let me tell you something. I don't know a country that can take 78 days of bombing. 78 days. Serbia was bombed to shit. They bombed schools. They bombed hospitals. They bombed in Pančevo, the biggest petrol area, the refineries. They bombed those things. They bombed the Studio Pink, where all the newscasting was coming out, so that nobody could get any news and find out what's going on. But here's what I say. I love being American. I love this fucking country, regardless of the fucking outcome of this fucking stupid election. You know what I mean? And regardless of all this bullshit that's going on, I love that I got the chance to grow up here and get this opportunity that I have. So I probably wouldn't have had this opportunity back in Serbia. But really, honestly, you bombed the fucking country into the Stone Age, and we still down fucking 7 of your fucking planes that are invisible. They will not admit it to this day. Just the other day, I was reading some fucking shit that my friend sent me from Serbia that I still I'm in contact with. He goes, hey, we have one plane in the museum. We sold one plane to Russia. We sold another plane to China, the stealth bomber. He goes, and we have another piece in the Belgrade Museum.
These were U.S. planes that got downed, right?
Yes,
right.
Yes, U.S. planes. There's a video on YouTube. Kids are dancing on the wing, and it says United States Air Force. They're dancing on the wing.
Right.
And the Americans sent the CIA specialist to talk to the general who was in charge of the artillery. How did you down these planes? And he goes, I will never tell you.
Well,
And he went to
and
Russia.
that's, but see, that's always what the United States does, because it's a propaganda ploy. It's like when we sent the fighter bombers in to blow up Gaddafi's palace, and we killed one of his kids. You know, we lost a jet in that. And the United States is like, oh, which they were flying low to avoid radar contact off coming in off the coast. But the United States is like, oh, one of the wings clipped the water and it wrecked.
Bullshit.
No, anti-coastal battery weaponry started taking flak, and one of the planes got hit and blew up.
And listen, and at that time they had the Russian anti-aircraft system.
Right.
So. Russia, as much as they want to say that Russia's not advanced.
Oh, they are.
I'm
100%. Oh, yeah, they are.
Listen to me. Listen to me. If you do a little research on the internet, it's not everything is bullshit on the internet. United States wanted their property. They were like, well, look, we know we bombed you, but we want our planes back. Serbia said, go fuck yourself. You bombed us. You put international embargoes on us. You know what it was like for my family to live back home in Serbia? It was ridiculous. It was like, like lunch lines, like you got bread lines. You got to wait for food. You had to, it was ridiculous. It was like, that's why I stopped going back. Look, Serbia was never united, ever, ever, ever. Every great empire lasts only so fucking long.
Exactly.
And at one time, I could say this. I could say this with heart. You could look it up. Serbia was known from all the way up into Austria, all the way down into Turkey. It was the Serbian Empire of Constantinople, and it was King Dusan who was in charge of it. It lasted the reign only 48 years or 50-some-odd years, don't quote me, but we were in charge of that whole fucking Orthodox region. It was all Kingdom of Serbia. So we've accomplished something fucking great. And now everybody wants a piece. It's like everybody's breaking off.
Right. Well, and if you look at it, I mean, look at everything. The Roman Empire collapsed. The Soviet Union collapsed. The German Empire collapsed. I mean, look at Prussia. I mean, Germany had everything. I mean, Czechoslovakia was part of Germany. I mean, all of that was Germany.
We were like registered, through the Roman Empire, 6th to 7th century, AD. We were recognized.
Wow.
Before that, it was Illyrians. Illyrians just disappeared. I don't think they disappeared. I think they just interbred with everybody else,
Right.
And I'm not going to sit there and say Albania was there first, because they weren't. Because if you look up their history, Albania was all the way in the Caucasus. And Albanians were brought in by the Romans because of them being warriors. That's it. Other than that, I'm not going to argue with another Albanian saying, oh, you're Illyrian, you're this, you're that. The proof is in the pudding. I look at history books, Skender Beg, who was a great leader to the Albanians, was fucking Serbian. His mother was a princess. His father was a king of the Serbian Empire. But they took him. They took him, and nobody said shit. That double-headed eagle they have is a Byzantine eagle. This is just history. Like our original eagle is black, but we put a little crest on it and put 4 C's. But we stopped doing that because they had the black eagle. The Byzantine Empire had the black eagle.
Flag,
so we just said, we're going to make our eagle white,
We're going to be running out of time here in a minute. Sure. I just wanted to ask you, before we kind of wrap this up, like, how do you see things going? I mean, obviously, we've discussed the Serbs arming up with the Russian defense system, and also with the Chinese drones. Where do you see this going? I mean, obviously, now that Biden's in, obviously that plays a part of it.
Well, I see that's okay. On my opinion, people that I know back home, I keep in contact with, having family in the army, they're just waiting for the go-ahead to invade fucking Kosovo. They're just waiting. The president is just fucking very iffy. He's like, I don't want to look like a schmuck, but I don't want to look like I gave up too much. If they just take Kosovska Mitrovica, which is just a northern tip, that's bullshit. That's fucking bullshit, because, we have churches that date back 8th century in Kosovo, and now it's all unpopulated by Albanians. I really don't give a fuck. Look, when Tito was the dictator, he opened up the borders with Albania because Albania was communist, And he let them flood fucking Kosovo because he wanted Serbs to be out of there. So,
Right.
that's that thing with that little double standard where I told you he was good, but he gave you a passport to leave the fucking country because he didn't want no problems anymore. He couldn't have enough secret police going around killing people. So he was like, look, you want to leave, leave.
Right.
A lot of people left for a better life, came to the United States. A lot of people just left because they didn't want to live under that fucking communist dictatorship, And it was. I mean, I remember going back home when I was a little kid, and it was like being harassed by the cops, being followed by people. If you had, like, whatever you had was contraband.
Right.
I couldn't leave an Adidas shirt to my
Well, they
cousin
don't want you
because
to influence their society, because their
Exactly.
society is deprived, and they don't want their people to realize, wow, shit, we're deprived.
Yeah.
Look
But
at this
honestly,
Westerner
I don't
coming
know.
in. Look at all the great things these Westerners have. It's the same
Yeah.
thing with, East Berlin and West Berlin. They
Right.
just
Well, I really don't know what the situation is going to be, but in my honest opinion, from what I'm hearing, I'm putting shit together. I know for a fact we ain't never going to get back Krajina and Croatia. That's never going to fucking happen. There's nothing even talks about starting that fucking fire up.
right.
But the Bosnian entity will separate. The Dayton Peace Accords cannot last for fucking ever. That was signed under duress. There's a new president. There's new, economic growth. China has given fucking the Bosnian Serbs weapons. Russia has given them the S-400 missile defense system.
Yeah, serious.
America's really blisteringly pissed, and now they're sending some envoy over there saying, hey, look, you're not going to be president no more. And the president told him to go suck his sack and leave. Straight.
Right.
Just like that.
Right.
He said,
What? Yeah.
I've been president for 20 years, and now I'm president of the entire fucking Bosnian entity.
How long are their terms? Do they have terms over there?
They do, but it's like, I don't know, like 1 minute he's prime minister, this guy Dodik. He was prime minister for like 4 to 6 years, and then he became president of Republika Srpska 3 or 4 times in a row, and now he got voted the whole Bosnian entity, meaning the Muslims and the Croatians. He just made it like by a margin, but he's now the president. So now he's changing and referendums and all of this shit, and he's talking about leaving. Now Kosovo, I know in North Kosovo, there's skirmishes. Albanians are crossing over into, there's little villages that are on Serbian side that are kind of like, not majority, but like minority, 48%, 40%, they're Albanian. So they're talking about a land swap. Listen, I don't give a shit what you do. There's not going to be a land swap. They tried to light up that little southern part of Serbia once before, and listen to me, they just built 3 bases down there. This is not inside information. There's on the border 70,000 fucking troops waiting.
Right.
35 could immediately just walk in and take a half. But the only problem is Camp Bondsteel. Camp Bondsteel, is just a front. It's a drug smuggling front. I don't have to tell you. You know. They're stripping us of everything we have. So Camp Bondsteel is next to the Trepča mines. There's nickel, there's cadmium, there's all this shit, and they're just sucking our shit that we have. They said there's so much nickel and there's so much silver and gold in those mines that, it could go on for the next 150 years mining,
Right.
So I know the United States is there for a fucking reason.
Of course.
I wish they would give like the next country a turn, which I heard was Hungary. Hungary was supposed to take over the base. And Hungary said straight off, if they get their hands on Camp Bondsteel and they're in control, they're going to just let the Serbs walk in. Because, Orban's no joke. He doesn't want to let the migrants in. He don't want to let nobody in. He's pro-freaking, a church. He's anti-immigrants. He's anti all of that shit. I really hope there's not going to be a war, but I think Bosnia is they're going to have a skirmish here or there, but I don't think it's going to be full-fledged.
Yeah, but you know what? That's how these things always start. A small skirmish, and and when there's tensions boiling under the surface, it turns into something big, So
yeah, I really don't know, but if America decides to put its finger back on that, as they say in John Wick, if you so much as put a pinky in that pond, you're back in.
Right.
America doesn't understand. Serbs have been nothing but in wars. The Balkans date back forever, and it's always been blood.
No, I really appreciate you sitting down.
Oh no, Mike,
this.
look, I just would love, I mean, people are gonna see it more like a one-sided. If they listen to this interview, it's gonna be more one-sided because I'm Serbian.
Right,
but I
of course.
did say throughout this whole interview, we're not angels.
All right, hey,
All right, we'll talk.
All right, brother, I'll talk to you soon. All right,
I'll talk to you,
see you.
brother.